Why do the weakest men receive the most attention while the strongest remain alone? Here's a disturbing truth that will shatter everything you believe about attraction. The man who sacrifices everything for love becomes the very thing that repels it. In laboratories across the world, psychologists have documented a phenomenon so counterintuitive, it defies logic. Women consistently abandon the men who give them everything, while obsessing over those who give them nothing. This isn't opinion. This isn't theory. This is measurable, repeatable human behavior that has remained constant across centuries, cultures, and civilizations. The same psychological principles that Niccolo Machiavelli used to topple kingdoms and crown emperors are the exact forces that govern desire, attraction, and romantic obsession. Most men approach love like beggars approaching a throne, desperate, submissive, and already defeated. They believe that vulnerability equals connection, that availability equals value, that surrender equals love. They are catastrophically wrong. Tonight I'm going to show you why the men who chase always lose, why the men who wait always win, and why the very foundations of modern dating advice have been designed to keep you powerless. What I'm about to reveal will feel wrong. It will challenge your moral programming, but it will unlock a psychological mastery that transforms how every woman responds to your presence. The question isn't whether these principles work. The question is whether you have the courage to use them. The first law: scarcity commands devotion. A man who offers his attention freely has already declared it worthless. In the economics of desire, attention is currency. And like all currency, its value is determined by one factor alone: scarcity. The moment you make yourself constantly available, constantly responsive, constantly present, you devalue the very thing she craves most: your focus. Modern men have been conditioned to believe that love means availability. Instant replies, endless conversations, marathon phone calls that stretch into the night. But these are not acts of devotion. They are confessions of desperation. When you respond immediately to every text, you communicate one devastating message: I have nothing more important than you. The lion does not explain his hunger to the gazelle. He simply appears, and his presence alone commands attention. You must learn this rhythm of calculated absence. When she reaches out, let the silence stretch. Not from cruelty, but from control. Not from games, but from genuine abundance. Your attention must be earned, not assumed. Every interaction should feel like a privilege she's gained, not a right she possesses. When you speak, let your words carry weight because they are rare. When you appear, let your presence feel like an event because it cannot be predicted. Watch how her behavior changes when your attention becomes unpredictable. The woman who once took your instant replies for granted suddenly finds herself checking her phone obsessively, wondering why you haven't responded. This is not manipulation. This is psychology. You have activated her hunter's instinct by becoming the prey that cannot be caught. The second law: security kills desire. The more certain she becomes of your devotion, the less she values it. Here lies the great paradox that destroys most relationships before they begin. Women say they want security, but they are magnetically drawn to uncertainty. They claim to desire the dependable man, but they fantasize about the unpredictable one. When you shower her with constant affirmation, when you make your feelings crystal clear, when you remove all doubt about your intentions, you commit psychological suicide. Certainty is the enemy of obsession. The moment she can predict your behavior, she loses interest in observing it. Do not be the man who asks if she likes you. Become the man who makes her wonder if she's worthy of you. Do not hand over your emotional state for her approval. Let her earn glimpses of your inner world through her actions, her loyalty, her patience. The kings of history did not offer their crown to every woman who entered their court. They made women prove their value, demonstrate their worth, earn their position through dedication and time. You must adopt this same selective process. When she cancels plans, Do not respond with hurt feelings or desperate attempts to reschedule. Respond with silence. That silence will echo in her mind louder than any emotional outburst ever could. Your indifference to her rejection becomes more powerful than your attachment to her acceptance. This is not cruelty, it is calibration. You are teaching her subconscious mind that your value cannot be taken for granted, that your attention is a reward for good behavior, not a consolation prize for poor treatment. The third law: mystery breeds obsession. The man who reveals everything has nothing left worth discovering. In our age of oversharing, men have forgotten the seductive power of the unknown. They believe that transparency builds trust, that honesty accelerates intimacy, that laying their cards on the table demonstrates authenticity. These men have misunderstood the fundamental nature of desire. Attraction does not grow in the light of complete knowledge. It flourishes in the shadows of uncertainty. When you explain yourself too clearly, when you reveal your every thought and motivation, when you answer every question she asks, you eliminate the very mystery that made you interesting. Machiavelli understood that power lies not in what you reveal, but in what you conceal. The wise prince never showed his full hand, never explained his complete strategy, never removed the air of mystery that kept his enemies guessing and his allies intrigued. You must become the locked journal, not the open book. When she asks about your past, give her fragments, not full stories. Let her imagination fill in the gaps. When she inquires about your plans, share pieces, not the complete picture. Make her work to understand you. Every detail you withhold becomes a question in her mind. Every answer you don't provide becomes a puzzle she needs to solve. The more she invests in understanding you, the more valuable you become to her. This is not deception. This is depth. You are not lying to her. You are simply allowing her to discover you gradually, earning each revelation through her patience and effort. The nice guy fails because he gives too much too quickly. He believes that vulnerability purchases affection, that openness creates connection. But unearned vulnerability repels rather than attracts. It feels like a transaction. Here are my feelings, now give me yours. Instead, become the man who speaks in layers. When she asks where this relationship is going, smile but don't answer immediately. Change the subject gracefully. Let her wonder. Let her imagine. Let her project her hopes onto the blank canvas of your unexpressed intentions. The fourth law: frame determines fate. The man who allows her to set the terms has already lost the war. In every interaction, someone sets the frame, the context, the rules, the emotional temperature of the exchange. Most men unconsciously surrender this power, allowing her to determine when they meet, how they communicate, what they discuss, and where the relationship progresses. This is psychological suicide. Frame control is not about domination through force. It is about leadership through presence. When you enter any situation with her, you must be the one who sets the tone, establishes the boundaries, and defines what is acceptable behavior. Do not ask her what she wants to do. Decide what you're doing and invite her to join you. Do not adjust your schedule to accommodate her every whim. Maintain your priorities and let her fit into your world. Do not lower your standards to keep her comfortable. Elevate your expectations and let her rise to meet them. If she brings emotional chaos to your interaction, you bring steady calm. If she creates drama, you create boundaries. If she tests your resolve, you do not explain or justify. You simply hold the line. A man who must defend his standards has already lost them. Your frame is invisible, but inescapable. It's the gravitational force that either pulls her into your orbit or allows her to drift away. When your frame is solid, she unconsciously adjusts her behavior to match your energy. When your frame is weak, she takes control by default. Remember, she is not testing your frame to destroy it. She is testing it to measure its strength. Every challenge, every emotional outburst, every boundary-pushing behavior Is her subconscious asking, "Are you strong enough to lead me?" If you collapse under pressure, she loses respect. If you remain unmoved, she becomes addicted to your strength. Most men bend when tested. When you don't, you become rare. You become real. You become unforgettable. The fifth law: detachment creates magnetism. The man who cannot be moved emotionally becomes impossible to forget. Emotional detachment is the ultimate expression of inner strength. It is not indifference, it is discipline. It is the quiet internal command that says, "My emotions serve me. They do not rule me." Most men are emotionally reactive. A delayed text sends them spiraling. A cold response triggers hours of anxious analysis. A small slight wounds them for days. This reactivity communicates weakness, neediness, and a lack of internal control. But the man who has mastered his emotional responses becomes psychologically magnetic. When she insults you, you don't defend yourself. You observe her behavior calmly. When she pulls away, you don't chase. You continue your life unchanged. When she tests your boundaries, you don't react emotionally. You simply enforce consequences. This emotional stability creates a powerful contrast in her experience. She's accustomed to men who break down under pressure, who beg for validation when challenged, who sacrifice their dignity to maintain her approval. When you remain unmoved by her emotional storms, you become a mystery she cannot solve. Women do not chase the emotionally needy. They are drawn to the man who remains centered regardless of external chaos. Your calm becomes her anchor. Your consistency becomes her obsession. Your emotional strength becomes the foundation she wants to build her feelings upon. When you can sit in silence with your heart on fire and show nothing, when you can be tempted, tested, insulted, or abandoned and remain composed, you transform from being just another option into becoming the standard by which she measures all other men. Detachment does not mean withdrawal. It means presence without desperation. It means you can walk away not out of anger, but out of principle. It means your value is not determined by her acceptance, but by your unwillingness to compromise your standards for anyone. The man who cannot be emotionally manipulated becomes the man who cannot be forgotten. The throne belongs to those who claim it. These are not pickup techniques or manipulation tactics. These are psychological principles that govern human attraction at its deepest level. Machiavelli understood that power is not taken by force. It is claimed through presence, maintained through discipline, and multiplied through restraint. The modern world has taught men to apologize for their strength, to suppress their leadership, to sacrifice their standards for acceptance. But the men who refuse this programming, who embrace these ancient laws of psychological mastery, become the men that women whisper about to their friends. Not the men who begged, not the men who explained themselves into irrelevance, not the men who surrendered their power for temporary comfort. The men who remained unmoved, the men who kept their mystery intact, the men who made women earn their attention, respect their boundaries, and work for their commitment. You have two choices: remain in the comfortable slavery of modern dating advice, or embrace the uncomfortable mastery of psychological sovereignty. The throne of desire belongs to those with the courage to claim it. And once claimed, it is never willingly surrendered.